The more pressure that you put on having a relationship, honestly, the further and further away it goes. And I know, that sounds completely backwards, but really think about this for a second. Think about how you act when you are desperate for something. You're shaky, you're on edge, you overanalyze every single message that you see, every single bit of information coming in, it's way overanalyzed. You know, that's the type of stuff that'll put you in a situation where you're wondering if you use the right punctuation or the right emoji, or if somebody's mad at you because they put a period at the end of the sentence. You wait around for a notification on your phone like it's an actual life preserver. And in reality, it's just taking you further away from the plot. We're losing the plot. I think in modern society, one of the biggest problems we have is that we see the goal right in front of our face, but we don't understand the pieces that are on the board in order to get there. And when it comes to getting a relationship and maintaining one, well, that is just the biggest piece of them all. And it's very few people that get it right. I don't want to come off as judgmental because I get it. I understand. I've been that exact guy, that desperate guy. That energy is just radioactive and people could smell it on you from a mile away. If you've ever been in a situation where somebody was way more interested in you than you are in them, you know what that feels like. Think of a friend that likes you a lot more than you like them. You just kind of do them a favor by having them around. It's like a charity event. I'm telling you, man, it's the exact same energy. So you gotta just drop it. You know, when you're so fixated on finding somebody that you have them right up pressed against your face, it's like you're right up against the forest and all you see is trees. Again, you're missing the plot. When you're in that situation, you stop acting like a normal human being and you start acting like a vacuum. You literally start acting like a vacuum. You're trying to suck all the value out of somebody to fill a massive hole that you have in your own life. But it's understandable. I get it. But you gotta understand that nobody wants to be a part of that dysfunction. Nobody wants to date a guy who acts like his life hasn't started yet because he doesn't have a girlfriend. You know, you're putting an insane amount of pressure on a stranger to fix your internal wound before they even know your middle name. It doesn't work. Relationships, and this includes friendships that otherwise would have worked out, have an astronomically lower chance of working out if they have pressure added to them. And this is a whole lot of pressure. You know, in the modern era, guys will sit in their rooms for 3 days straight, completely isolated, and then wonder and ponder to themselves why the dating apps aren't working. You know, it's not about your looks. It's actually, fun fact, it has not a lot to do with your looks. It's actually more about the life that you actually have constructed around you. I mean, not for nothing, you know, with the life around you, look at the role that you play in the lives of the people who are already in your corner, that are already around you right now. You know, are you a ghost to your friends? Are you a burden to the people around you? Are you a background character? What do you do? What's your attributes? What are your skill points put into? Seriously, like write this down. Where are your skill points right now? You know, in order to build self-esteem and to build that esteem in your life, you need to do esteemable things. You need to challenge yourself. You need to take this life to the next level. And trust me, I know that is much easier said than done, but what's going on right now in your current formula is not working. And let me tell you, what that doesn't mean is that it's time to sit there and complain and think about what's going wrong and how we could pick this thing apart. No, it's not about the complaints. It's not about society. It's about your life and how you're going to iterate it and change it. And like, I don't want to be brutal here, but if you can't manage the small and quiet corners of your life with some level of competence and build up a confident self around your life, you aren't going to just suddenly level up, you know, just because a girl gave you a chance. And you know what? Maybe that's what a lot of you guys need. I think that's what a lot of us need to hear, is that even if we do get a girlfriend, even if we do get the relationship, even if we do get this new addition to our life, that doesn't mean that everything just gets better. And you know what's really interesting is that it's actually the other way around. You build a life that is better, and then all these better things come to you out of abundance. Because if you have a life that's full of chaos and you're just anchored by it day to day, you know, if you're messy and unreliable and passive, you're just going to bring that same type of shaky energy into somebody else's life. You know, think about it. Like, truly look yourself in the mirror. Why would somebody date you? What are you going to add to their life? Because you're looking for them to bring you this blessing. What are you bringing? What's in your toolkit? Where are your skill points? Are you smart? Are you nice? Are you kind? Are you observant? Are you funny? Are you successful? Do you have a business? Do you bring like a unique perspective with you that not a lot of people have? That's what people are looking for. That's what you're looking for out of her. So I think if we could take some time and iterate on those skill points and realize, like, you know what, I'm not so good at conversation. I think I'm gonna, read some self-help books on how to talk to people more. I'm a really, really funny guy, but I get really anxious, so it's hard for me to deploy that on people that aren't my friends. Oh, you know what, maybe I'll go to therapy and deal with my anxiety. Maybe I'll work on breathing exercises. There's ways to upgrade this life. And this is something that I really carry with me in almost every single topic in my life. How you do one thing is how you're gonna do everything. If you become unanchored by your life and your chaotic day-to-day goes away, if you throw away that messy and unreliable version of yourself, these are really, really reasonable changes. And I know they seem like crazy because it's something that's right in front of you, but a lot of you guys just have one little thing to change. One little, you could have one little small error of your life, and then on the other side is all this fruit. You're just one constructive criticism away from having the life that you've always wanted and you've been depriving yourself of. And this is really where the looks myth completely falls apart. You think that you maybe need a sharper jawline, or you need to be, 6'2" in order to get a text back on your phone. But what you actually need is just some level of competence. Competence has a physical gravity to it. If you've ever watched a woman look at a guy who actually knows how to handle a problem without panicking and freaking out, or just shrugging his shoulders and going, oh, I don't know, that's somebody else's problem. A guy who deals with a crisis or deals with a moment in a unique way or a calm way, that could handle a rude person or, navigation of a difficult situation without losing your cool. Those are the people that command respect. If there's a problem at work and you know that it's somebody else's doing and you just shrug your shoulders, maybe instead of shrugging your shoulders and saying, oh, I think that's Dan from accounting, maybe you could look into it and be like, you know what? I think I'm going to tinker away at this. I got some free time. Maybe somebody notices. Who knows? Maybe somebody's paying attention and looks at you a little different. If what's currently going on isn't working, you don't dig yourself any deeper. It's time to find a new room to be in. And I mean, I'm speaking from firsthand reality here because I'm going to give you a real world example with me and my relationship. I've been dating my girlfriend for 2 years now and things are going super well, but I spent a long time single. So yeah, my current girlfriend, I actually met her at Starbucks. We both worked together at Starbucks. It wasn't some type of love at first sight movie moment as much as I tell her that it is. Where, I didn't walk over to her with the perfect line. In fact, when we first met, she had a boyfriend and I had a girlfriend. And there was zero romantic agenda. Absolutely nothing. I mean, for the better part of 8 or 9 months, we were just friends. Nothing more. And I gotta say, as much as I maybe had a crush on her at some point, it was actually a good thing that we had this massive window of time. We were able to just figure out who the other person was without any of the weird dating pressure. I wasn't hovering around her at her every beck and call waiting for her relationship to be over so I could swoop in like a vulture. I was just being her friend, treating her like a genuine person. I treated her with respect because that's kind of the standard I try to hold to myself. It's genuinely the bare minimum. And as much of in the back of my head, maybe I was like, oh, you know what? She really has all the makings of a great girlfriend. She checks all the boxes. I wasn't putting on a performance for her. I was just existing in the same space as her and demonstrating my value through living my life. And during those months, I showed her that I cared about her, even though there was absolutely nothing for me to directly gain other than just helping somebody. I remember she had a hand injury at work and it was a very physical work environment. And instead of just saying that sucks, I actually made our coworkers aware of it and gave her advice. I advocated for her and went out of my way because I was there for a little bit longer than her so that my coworkers wouldn't overwhelm her or expect her to do things that she physically couldn't do because obviously she was injured. And, other than that, we had a common thread of career stuff and trying to apply to new jobs with our college degrees. So I gave her advice on that and the job market and some perspective on her career. And, the bottom line is I didn't have a relationship in mind. It's just somebody who I admired and I wanted to help them. I was trying to build myself and demonstrate value and give somebody value the same way I would give to any of my friends. I wasn't trying to nice guy my way into her life. I did it because I saw a person I respected and I wanted to see her succeed. And you guys should do the exact same thing with everybody in your life. And I know it's hard. I know that humanistic emotion where you're like, oh, what can I get out of this situation? Everything's kind of viewed as a transaction and it makes sense. That's called survival instinct. You're not a bad person for feeling that way. But if that's all you act on in your entire life, you're just not going to seize all of your potential. And in a world where everyone is flaking and ghosting and keeping a mental roster in their head and lying to keep their options open, being a man of your word is really a superpower. I know it sounds so boring, but just being a genuinely good person is the ultimate separator in this modern era. It's kind of pathetic to say, but it's true. And you'll find once you start to build that class setup, once you start to put those skill points where they should go, when you finally put that work in to become that guy, the guy who helps without an agenda, who holds his ground, who has actual integrity, rejection just completely stops hurting. You know, it fundamentally changes how it feels to, I guess, take an L on a girl. And something that I started to notice that was really shocking, if a girl doesn't give you a chance, you honestly start to feel a little bit bad for her. You're like, her loss. Like, if she didn't see it, that's crazy for her. I feel bad for her. And on to the next. You know, you stop getting mad at the dating market and you start to realize you're holding a winning hand. You don't have to worry. You just have to wait for the right player to sit down. And I'm sure you guys are saying, like, dude, like, it's easy for you to say, you got the girlfriends, you got this, you got the life, you worked at Starbucks, you were able to meet people. I get that. But I had to fake some of this confidence at first, you know, and that's perfectly fine. If that's you, if you have to fake it till you make it in this case, it's okay. You know, stand a little taller, speak a little clearer until the performance actually becomes part of your personality because it's something that you're developing day by day, just like training your biceps. I think struggling with matters of loneliness is way more common than people actually care to admit. And it's crazy because loneliness is rarely ever about being like a hermit in a cabin and you're all alone. Honestly, for most of us, it's more about just floating through your life. You know, you probably have acquaintances, you have people you talk to at work or school or wherever you go. And maybe you have like a friend group that maybe you hop on Discord with, but you're floating on the outside of it. You're like on the outside of a bubble. You know, you're the guy who gets the invite, but maybe you aren't the one people call when they actually have something to talk about. Loneliness comes in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. More than likely, if you're feeling lonely, you probably feel like you're somewhere in the gap between having people to hang out with and having a group or a relationship that actually matters. You know, more than likely, if you're feeling lonely, maybe you feel like you're a background character in somebody else's life. And I really wanted to get into this topic because I spent a decent amount of time in my life in that exact same situation, in that exact same gap. You know, I went from being one half of a really well-known duo in high school to having almost zero friend group infrastructure. You know, I wasn't only feeling lonely in that situation, I was actually isolated completely. So yeah, I want to talk about all that. I want to talk about how that happened and the physical toll that it took and how I had to kind of rebuild myself from scratch. So yeah, when I was in high school, I genuinely feel like I had it made. You know, I was part of a duo. We were a package deal. You know, I considered him to be my best friend. And if you were friends with him, you were friends with me. That's kind of how it worked. You know, it was super comfortable. It was a really good, healthy dynamic. But about midway through high school, he started to drift from me a bit. You know, he started to hang out with a rougher crowd, people who were into drugs. He started doing drugs himself. He eventually ended up becoming a drug dealer behind everybody's back. And, you know, I didn't want any part of that world. That just wasn't something that I identified with, and I stayed behind. I shrugged my shoulders and I said, you know what? I'm not getting invited to these parties that he's going to, and honestly, I don't even really want to. And sadly, a lot of people that were also mutual friends, so some, you know, tangential friends I had, other close friends, they decided to stay friends with him. They decided to stay really close with him, and that was really, really isolating. You know, at that point when he left, I realized I was genuinely socially bankrupt. You know, I spent all my time as, I guess, half of a duo or a piece of that pie. I hadn't really built super strong individual connections with other people. You know, I knew people knew me, like I had good dynamics, but I didn't have a standing with much other people. You know, we were friends, but me and him, like, it was really just a strong bond. And it was also a friendship of convenience too. But you know, that type of standing where you know people and they know you, but you're not super close with them and you're an acquaintance to everybody, this is the floating that I'm talking about. You're floating through life. You're floating through relationships. You're floating through friendships. You're close enough to talk to people, but you're not close enough to reach them. You know, if you're lonely right now in this situation and you're watching this video, it's likely because you haven't built out your own social infrastructure. You know, maybe you're relying on one person or one entity or one idea or one specific setting like school or a job or whatever to provide you, you know, your people, to give you a conveyor belt of friends. And when that setting or that person or that situation disappears, you could be left with nothing. It's a realization you have to come to, and that realization really hit me because this one person dropped off the face of the earth and went to go do drugs, and I was left kind of alone. And coming to that realization and spending that time alone, it started off with a bang. Like, I'd come home from school and I would just be depressed. I would just be run down. I would just be sad. I just lay there in my bed for hours. I would maybe take a nap, go on my phone, but just do nothing. And I was pretty driven at that point in my life. I was uploading YouTube videos every single week. I was trying to get into working out, but everything just kind of fizzled. I had interests, but I didn't really care about them. And it was really sad because I just felt like the life was being drained from me because I was thinking like, back in the day, we used to do this, we used to do that. And I'd be reminiscing on a year ago. When you're in high school, it's supposed to be a lot of just optimism and happiness. And I wasted a whole 6-month period just kind of wasting away. And I think one of the key details when people describe loneliness, a key detail that people miss is that loneliness isn't just like a mental state. It's also a physical rot. When you feel like you're not seen by anybody, you stop seeing yourself as something worth maintaining or taking care of or building esteemable acts into. I looked at my phone every 5 minutes, hoping for a text or an invite or a call. I was hoping to get stopped in the hallway for an invite and nothing was there. It's a specific type of pain. And, you're looking at a blank screen of your life and realizing that if you didn't reach out first, your phone would just never ring again. And that's just what it was. And it was such a big difference from the year before. And the genuine hard truth is, the world is busy. Everyone else is caught up in what they have going on or, their own duo or their own group. Nobody's looking for the guy who disappeared into his bedroom. As much as you need somebody to save you, you have to be the one to knock on the door and do it yourself. And the way that I honestly broke out of this loneliness, it wasn't like a sudden explosion of confidence and, oh my God, I'm all cured. It all started with just a walk. I decided that because I was into fitness and I enjoyed lifting, I enjoyed doing cardio, even though I had no idea what I was doing, I decided I was going to walk to the gym every single day. Rain, snow, whatever. And I mean it. There was giant snow mounds that I was climbing over to get to the gym. I needed to get out of that bed in a big, ridiculous way because the bed was where I was slowly wasting away. That walk every single day after school, it was really important to me because it was low stimulus. I didn't have to have a podcast in or, any specific goal that I was going after. I would just listen to music. I would just listen to music and I would walk. It would be 45 minutes total in each day. And, I was forced in that time to just be alone with my thoughts and to process things. And it was very, very therapeutic. I was pretty much forced in that moment, even though I was only 16 years old. I was forced to audit my own life. That's my social life, relationships, everything. I had to face the facts. I was gaining weight because I was depressed because of the friendship thing. I was lonely and, I was kind of 5 out of 10ing everything in my life. And that was just due to my mental state. And during my daily walks, and I mean daily, every single day other than maybe Sunday, and during those walks, I started to meditate on my interests, on my life. I realized I had 2 things I actually cared about, and that was fitness and that was YouTube. I decided that if I couldn't find a group of friends right now, I could at least become a guy who was established in something, and I stopped trying to solve loneliness, and all I did was just lean into things that I like. By the time I'd reached the gym, my head would be significantly clearer. And if it wasn't more clear, it would be more clear when I got home or the next day reflecting on my time at the gym. I wasn't looking for a best friend at the gym or, on YouTube. I was looking for a workout. But something interesting that happens when you stop seeking people specifically and start seeking a goal and a version of yourself you want to be, well, you naturally become the kind of person people want to be around. And that's how you get friends. That's how you get a girlfriend. And then after I was building myself up, when I finally felt ready to start, putting myself out there and to be social again, I wasn't in it to find a best friend. I definitely didn't try to find a girlfriend or anything like that. That's how you get hurt with expectations and you end up laying face flat in your bed again. I focused on seeds. I focused on planting seeds. A seed, in this case, would be an acquaintance who shares one specific functional interest with you. For me, these were, people that I went to school with, whether it was in my, my assorted different classes, gym class, whatever it is. A few people from school, and they knew like I liked the same games as them, or the same, if they were into YouTube. A lot of people thought the YouTube thing was very cool. In the friend group that I'm actually in right now, I'm 27 years old as of recording this. The friend group I have right now was actually planted the seeds because a bunch of people I went to school with and had classes with thought my YouTube channel was cool. Instead of trying to be friends with these people, I just engaged with them on that one interest. I'd ask a friend in my gym class about his gym split, or I'd talk to my friend in my tech class about a YouTube video that I was editing or a series I was making on my channel. I wasn't asking for their time. I was just sharing more of myself. And in order to share some of yourself, you need to build some of yourself. And I think overall, one of the common factors when it comes to lonely people is they don't think that they are worthy. They don't think they're worthy, and that gets in the way more than anything. If you're watching a self-help video about how to stop being lonely, you're a thoughtful person. You're a deeply thoughtful person, and somebody who's willing to do that type of work for themselves in the background, they are worthy. I assure you. And above all, just know that loneliness is not a permanent state. It's just a sign. It's just a symptom, that your social infrastructure is broken. It needs some work. So stop mourning the old group or the old relationship or the old life and start the progress on the new one. Start your version of the walk today. I think it's about time that we start being honest with ourselves. Dating is officially chalked. Man, if you're a young guy right now and you feel like the game is rigged against you, it's probably because it is. Trust me, you're not imagining the fact that you're lonely. You're not imagining those lonely nights, and you're definitely not weak for feeling hopeless. You're just looking at the current meta of the dating world, and you might be sitting here right now looking at your computer, scratching your head, wondering what that winning move is. And that's the crazy thing. The winning move is actually to be above the game. We've reached a point where the cost of trying when it comes to dating, whether it's financially or mentally with investment or even socially with the people around you, it's so high that honestly giving up, the thought of just giving in and just being like, whatever, I don't care anymore, it's starting to become the default state for a lot of guys. But I strongly urge you, you clicked on this video for a reason. I'm here to help you guys. The reason that you're losing, or the reason why you feel like you're losing, it's not because you're not good enough. It's because you're playing in the wrong arenas. You're likely deploying a lot of your personality and a lot of what you got going on in the wrong crowd, with the wrong marketing strategy, with the wrong intended outcome. If you're watching this, you're probably trying to find genuine connection with people in places that may not be designed to actually be conducive to that. A lot of places where you could find connection or have the illusion of finding connection, they're designed to farm your attention and obviously your wallet. It's just the unfortunate reality of being single and looking to expand your life in 2026. So there's a lot of complicated factors that go in here, but number one, the first thing I want to talk about here is dating apps. And I'm not super anti-dating apps. I know a lot of people, a lot of doomers here in the commentary community are going to say like, dating apps are just trying to extract you of your money and there's nothing you can get out of it. Now, what I will say is if you don't go into dating apps with the proper amount of investment, the proper amount of detachment, and also just having a shred or an iota of self-respect, you're going to get ran over. You just are. As much as these dating apps like Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, like you could probably know all of them. As much as they market as being like it's a matchmaking service, find the love of your life or find a cheap casual thrill, it's not a matchmaking service. It's more like a digital casino, honestly, with validation as the currency. And it's all based on a sick, twisted algorithm, just like social media. But it's okay. Algorithms aren't always a bad thing. Just not being aware of them is where they can be manipulative. The algorithm isn't designed to find you a girlfriend. It's there to keep you with the proper amount of retention swiping. So if you find somebody, the app loses a customer. Now, just think back about like the toxic nature of any time that you've been on the app and you're swiping, and finally it's the perfect girl. And then, bam, you run out of swipes. So what do? You hook up your Apple Pay or Samsung Pay or whatever it is, and maybe you buy premium. Trust me, there's no embarrassment in doing this. Just realize that it is a retention-based algorithm, and there's a reason why that happened. They didn't take your money by accident. I mean, these companies got a lot of men in the position of literally paying for the chance to potentially be rejected by someone who might not even be real. Or if they are real, they might not actually be a genuine person. So either way, they're fake. And then you got to look at the player base. You got to look at the people that are on the app. You got half the people on there who are just there for a hit of validation, like the top 1%ers. You know, they have no intention of meeting up unless you're just absolutely drop dead gorgeous. They're there for the same reason why they post on Instagram. They want a notification to pop up on their phone. And then, as toxic as that is, the other half of people who are on the app are there taking it way too seriously. Now, if you fall into this category, I don't mean any offense by it, but seriously, like, take a second to listen. You know, you're treating your profile like it's a job application. You're treating these messages like you're in the interview stages of a job. I get why you're doing that. You're trying to min-max. You probably play video games. You're trying to hit your, your score multiplier or whatever. When the stakes go up, the pressure goes up, and then things go inorganic. That's just how it goes. So at that point, you represent being the guy who's competing with thousands of other guys for the attention of somebody who's already overwhelmed. It doesn't work. So if you are somebody who peruses dating apps, I recommend just being casual and chill about it. Back when I used to use like Tinder or Bumble or whatever, I would just kind of like mess around, joke with people, show my genuine personality. But if I got a message back, I wasn't picturing what the wedding was going to look like. And you shouldn't either. And if you're not on a dating app, then you have something honestly even worse to look forward to. Bar culture. If you're in your 20s, I'm sure people ask you to go to bars. Maybe you enjoy going to bars. I don't judge. Free country, wherever you want to go. Bars have genuinely never been my thing. They never will be, as much as I've tried to force it, as much as I've tried to like meet people there, make friends, maybe find like a girl or whatever. It's never, ever, not even once been a fruitful endeavor for me. I hate it. My friends know that I hate it. And as stubborn as I am, and as much as I say that I hate it, I still go. I try to have a good time. I regret it almost every time. With bar culture, we're told that this is where you're gonna go to meet people. This is where, this is where you find your future wife. This is where you find your girlfriend. This is where you find your best man. But I want to paint a little bit of a picture for you. It's loud. It's expensive. It's sticky. You're paying $15 per drink. Now that's the type of thing that's gonna add up. And I think one of my least favorite things about bars is just how loud the music is. Maybe I'm lame, but like, if you're gonna meet somebody somewhere, you gotta be able to talk to them. If they're blasting the music, you cannot have a genuine conversation. That's just not how it is. It's all surface level. And it's really hard to get a read on somebody and understand what they're all about and what their values are when you can really only talk to them in keywords. And they can only make out half of what you're saying in the first place. And what I've found, I'm 27 years old now at this point. I have a lot of friends who have gone through different phases going to the bars. I still have friends that go to the bar. I have some friends that are significantly younger than me that go to the bar. I have friends that are older than me that go to the bar. I have a pretty wide range here. I've noticed a lot of people do not go to the bars to connect with each other. They go there to escape. They're either escaping their job, they're escaping their relationship, they're escaping their friends, they're escaping their parents, they're escaping their home, whatever it is, they're there for an escapism. And you don't escape to find what's next unless you're in a really bad situation. And when you're in a bad situation and you're fishing for your next thing, probably not going to be good either. People in that environment tend to be drunk, annoying, they tend to be too much or over exaggerated. A lot of them, it feels like they're looking for a temporary social high, and then they pick you up, and then bam, poof, they're gone. They disappear. And when you're trying to build your life, when you're focused on how lonely you are, you're focused on whatever your next phase is, you don't want to be around a bunch of people who are about as deep as a puddle. You want to submerge yourself in something deeper than that. When you're at the bar, women cheat, men cheat. It's all a big game of pretend. Why would you want to look for your next teammate in life in a place where everybody's just trying to forget what they have going on? Now let's move the location here from outside. Let's bring it inside the house. This is where the withdrawal happens. It's like almost like a rotting in your bedroom aesthetic that everybody seems to be addicted to. It's so trendy and like on brand to rebrand isolation as, quote unquote, protecting my peace, which is some of the most pretentious stuff I've ever heard. It's so popular to just make rotting in your room almost look like an aesthetic. If you're in a situation where you want to build self-esteem and build a life for yourself, you can't build something while you're in a hole. I think that's really what it is. And then when we're in that situation, we're talking about, oh, I'm going to be forever alone. I'm going to be alone forever. Like it's a terminal disease, but it's not something you were diagnosed with. It's just something that you seem to be manifesting for yourself. You know, you might be sitting in your room convincing yourself that the world is an absolute wasteland for you, so you could stay in your bunker. You know, at least you know what's in your bunker. At least you're comfy, but don't convince yourself that you're at peace. You're just hiding in a cage. Now, in terms of actually doing something productive with these feelings and just knowing like, hey, like the bar's not for me, the dating app may not be for me, yada, yada, yada. It's not about doing a massive overhaul to your life. It's about winning micro battles. You know, if the whole thing of loneliness is a war, you just have a bunch of micro battles that, imagine like a staircase where you take one step a day or one step a week or one step a month. You're going somewhere. It just takes time. You know, look for organic opportunities to talk to people. And on that same note, look for what is an inorganic opportunity and choose wisely. If you see a girl at the gym and she has headphones on, just leave her alone. Don't go hit on her. Don't go socialize with her. Don't be attached to her. Just let her be. On the other hand, if you're at the grocery store, you're standing online and there's a Karen at the front of the line yelling at the cashier, you see a girl online with you, make a joke. That's much more organic. Bottom line is 1% per day adds up really quickly. I think the most dangerous thing that you can do as a man is just sit on your hands and wait. There's a lot of us that are just sitting in our rooms, staring at our screens, staring at our phones, just waiting for a moment to appear, just waiting for mentorship. Or maybe you're just waiting for a big break at work. Or maybe you're just waiting for the right girl to come by and save you for whatever that is or whatever that's worth. And I'll tell you this right now. In the pursuit of becoming a real man who has his life figured out, who has his life together and his ideals all in order, nobody's coming to save you. You're the sum of all of the poor decisions or the good decisions that you make in your life. And if you make poor ones, if you find yourself in a bad scenario, truly, you're still living a conditional existence. While you might have people in your life that care about you and they might come bail you out of a sticky situation every once in a while, if you just stack your life with bad decisions, nobody's coming to save you like Superman. You come to a point in your 20s or 30s or 40s, you look around and you realize like, oh, my life looks weird and people are keeping their distance. I wonder why. And the why behind that big question is nobody wants to be friends or associate with a man-child unless they're weird. Nobody wants to parent you just for being close to you in proximity. In the real world, nobody's monitoring your potential. People only care about your output and how you make them feel. And if you're drowning, the world isn't going to throw you a rope. You might get bailed out every once in a while, but in totality, you'll find yourself in a bad spot. So if you don't take action for yourself today and continue to put esteemable acts behind wanting to be a real man, to be a proper man, whether it's a job application or cleaning your room, cleaning your kitchen, taking on some sort of a physique goal or going to the gym, if you don't take some agency over that, the future you is going to be just as miserable, if not more miserable than you are right now, only older, which makes things a lot more strange. Here's an example. If you cheat on your girlfriend right now, let's say you have a multi-year relationship and you cheat on your girlfriend, okay, low-key, like, not my favorite thing for people to do, but it's your prerogative. If you do that, she breaks up with you, and then maybe you can't find as good of a girl, or maybe you set yourself back because maybe you cheat on multiple partners in a row. All of a sudden, 5 years goes by, 10 years goes by, and you're just this serial cheater who makes bad decisions and can only associate with people who make similar level decisions. Your life is going to look weird. You're going to be surrounded by a bunch of people who haven't grown up. You're pretty much going to be the male equivalent of the crazy cat lady. So yeah, it doesn't always have to be as dramatic as, oh, you're cheating on your girlfriend, but maybe you're just not cleaning your room. Maybe you're not taking care of your physique. Maybe you're slowly pushing your friends away through acting like a baby. One mistake doesn't really have that much of an effect, but if you just accumulate them and just over and over and over repeat them, well, these things have devastating consequences, to say the least. Looking yourself in the mirror and deciding to become a proper man starts the exact second you stop looking for a rescue in this life, take some accountability, and realize that you are the only first responder that you have. And beyond that, you don't want to be a liability to people around you. You know, in 2026, admittedly, the bar for being a man, just based on knowing people and talking to women, just talking to people altogether, the bar for being a man is actually painfully low. Turns out there's a lot of people in Gen Z and even some young millennials that act like children. And I mean, the first step to being a man and really just unlocking that level of manhood, it isn't outright success. I'm not talking about salary. I'm not talking about what you own. I'm talking about utility. Ask yourself, are you a net positive or a net negative to the people around you? Like, for example, just take a look at your friends. Are you the one who always needs a ride, always conveniently forgets your wallet, always has some sort of a crisis that everybody else has to help solve? If you're that type of person, you might be a liability. You might be acting like a man-child. And now let me be clear, this doesn't make you a bad person. You can be a really, really good friend and have some of these qualities, but just realize that you'd be doing yourself a lot more of a service and the people around you if you solved these little things about yourself and turned them into goals rather than just personality traits. Just because there's something that you do doesn't mean it needs to be a part of your personality. I'm a major overthinker in my life. And I have anxiety. I have general anxiety almost 24/7. It's not a personality trait of mine. A lot of people wouldn't even know it's something I suffer with. Now I want you to think about, like, say if you have a relationship, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, think about your girlfriend or your parents. If they have to manage your emotions like it's some sort of a high yield savings account, money market account, or even worse, if they have to get involved in your finances because you can't manage it, because you can't keep it together, you're sitting there, you're a child with a beard. Take some time. AI is prevalent. You got Gemini, you got Grok, you got ChatGPT, or you even got Google, whatever it is. Learn about these things. Educate yourself. Don't be a burden on people unnecessarily. Now, don't get me wrong, like, it's okay to ask for help. My girlfriend, for example, is very, very smart with finances, very smart with money, very smart with budgeting, so I tap into her and I ask for the help. And I accept her help because she's so generous, thankfully. But I'm not sitting there as her little pet project that she needs to manage so that we can have a future. If she was here or if she wasn't here, I'd still be saving money, but we're kind of like pooling our 100% together to equal 200% rather than her being 150% and me being 50%. And in that same regard, even though she helps me out financially, I am a real nerd about working out and lifting and dieting and nutrition and things like that, so I help her in that regard. You know, it's a push and pull. And also, in terms of not being a liability, now this is my personal preference. I'm a little more old-fashioned when it comes to this type of aspect. I don't like to make my girlfriend drive anywhere. It's a good day in my book if I'm driving and she's able to look out the window and point out its signs, relax, enjoy herself. She works hard. I take it upon myself to drive the car. I drive us on the weekends. I drive us during the week to the gym and the food store and restaurants and what have you. It's how I prefer to do things. It's almost like going out of your way to show her, like, hey, like, I see how hard you work. I want to drive you to and from places because it makes me feel good. I'm not saying it's the way that you have to be. Everybody has different balances in their relationship, but I will say, you know, she is somebody who likes to do things for herself. She'll pick up a screwdriver. She'll pick up a hammer. She's great in that way. But she does also brag saying, like, oh yeah, I don't have to drive anywhere. You know, Matt's nice enough to drive me places, and that feels good. That's very rewarding to me. It's worth every drop of gas and all the miles on my car. Being a proper man in this day and age means being the person that people can lean on without the entire bridge absolutely collapsing. You know, it's why I tell people, like, try to have 10K in savings, try to have 20K in savings, try to have 1K in savings, try to cover your finances. I'm not sitting there saying that so that you could flex with your money. It's not flex money. It's peace of mind for the people that you love. It's peace of mind for the future. It's favors you don't have to ask for. It's a debt that you're not saddled with. And I'm sitting here, I don't have a single cent of credit card debt. And that makes me feel good because if something came up between me and my girlfriend and we had to fix it, I don't have to sit there and try to settle my credit cards. I can look at the options. I could step up and I could fix it. Many, many years ago, I had thousands of dollars of credit card debt and I technically didn't have to touch it. I did not have to pay it off. I could accumulate all the interest in the world, absolutely tank my credit score, and I would have a lot more money in this present day. But guess what? My bathroom exploded a few months ago, and if I didn't have the money to pay that off, I would have had to either borrow it from my girlfriend, borrow it from my dad, or worst of all, borrow it from her family. And that would have been not a proud moment. And a big theme of a lot of the advice I'm giving today, or even on my channel in general, is having to do with being responsible for yourself, taking accountability. And I think that we just live in an absolute cope culture right now. I know that things are bad, but whenever anything happens to us, we blame the economy, we blame, random apps from social media on our phone, we blame our upbringings, we blame our parents, we blame our breakups. And look, I get it. The economy's weird. Social media is crazy. Parents really don't always do a great job. I understand. I've not done this adult thing with a full deck of cards, I assure you. And I'm sure I'll make a video in the future really letting you guys know how everything was growing up. But coming from bad times and having some bad times in adulthood, I can confidently say a proper man and a proper person doesn't use their environment as an excuse to stagnate. There is a massive difference between fault and responsibility. It might not be your fault that your company laid you off or that maybe the housing market isn't too ideal, but it is 100% your responsibility to figure something out. If your room is a mess, that's on you. If your car is a mess, that's on you. If you're out of shape, that's completely on you. And trust me, I might have my life together in a lot of regards, but if you looked at my car right now, it's dirty. It's messy. So I think a big theme here is that even though we're over here and we're told on social media to protect our peace, TikTok wants to tell us to protect our peace no matter what by hiding from the world, it's just a fancy way of saying that you're afraid of friction. You protect your peace by becoming so competent and so reliable that the world can't touch you. That's how you do it. You don't do it by putting up walls between you and obstacles, you do it by breaking them down. People don't want to say it, especially on social media, but real manhood is quiet, it's dead silent, and reliability is the most underrated trait. It's an absolute currency right now because almost nobody has it, and if they do, it's inconsistent. And trust me, I have had my faults in the past. I'm not always a consistent person, but let me tell you, if you look at my life right now as a 27-year-old man, you compare it to 22-year-old Cozy or 25-year-old Cozy, there's a big difference. Just stop trying to be happy and start trying to be useful for the people around you so they appreciate you. Happiness is a byproduct of being the man who can actually handle himself. And when you handle your finances, your health, your wealth, and your relationships, happiness shows up as a side effect of just not being a mess. It's a heavy world out there, and it needs people who can carry their own weight. And you know what? Maybe a little bit of somebody else's too. I don't say this just to be doom and gloom. I know you guys have what it takes. I know what both sides of this scenario look like, and it's a lot better on this side.